rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I
pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Holy Heavenly Father, as we join here tonight, Lord, to make the decisions that affect the people of this city, Lord, we ask for your wisdom and your guidance. Heavenly Father, to be with us this coming week, Lord, and keep us all safe. We ask these things in Christ's name. Amen.
Amen. Ready? Welcome everybody. Before we do the roll call, I'd like to wish one of our board members a very happy birthday, Mr. John Manus. Happy birthday, sir.
All right, thank you.
All right, let's do a roll call.
Okay, Aaron Rowe.
Here.
John Manus.
Here.
James Davis.
Here.
Savannah Robinson.
Here.
Bill Young.
Here.
Ron Sharam.
Here.
All righty. Has everybody been able to look at the minutes of the July 9th meeting? And if so, if they would like to approve those, we'd like a motion to approve them as written.
I move that we approve them as written.
All right, got a motion by Bill. Do I have a second?
Second.
Got a second by Mr. Davis. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed by the same. All right, motion passed. All right, anybody from the public like to discuss anything on the agenda tonight? All right, no? Unfinished business. Let's have a discussion of park needs. Mr. Steve?
One of the things that we had when we got had a visit and had the introductory class was that we have to have some and more than one contact for the needs of the park. So I went and talked to three folks, and I found out that we'll need to do some more. So we're going to have a discussion, and Kim will be having it posted on the board out front about when we'll have the meeting. One of the things that came up was additional bathrooms, playground equipment designed for use by older kids, and some paved handicap parking. This year, the program allows you to plan for restrooms and parking for those that do need it, and an allowable charge. What we have looked at is applying for a matching grant. We have the acreage, that's not a problem. We have an engineering firm on board, and we've taken care of that. That's one they'll need. We have looked at any other needs, but the biggest thing is when we do, and we have the utilities out in place, both the sewer and the water. If we do the bathrooms, we've looked at some modulars, and if you have in matching money, it's still going to be a chunk of change, but it's general fund, and estimates vary wildly from however you fix them up. However, one of the big costs has always been for other folks that have done it. It's water and sewer, and we've got it in place, so that's another player. The playground equipment for older kids, some time back we had a request. They were wanting basketball goals to be placed on the splash pad. My first thought about that is you probably don't need them on the splash pad, but if we build playground equipment for use by older kids, whether they're pull-up bars or trapeze swings or ladders or whatever, that would be the place to put the basketball goals, because they would be over onto one side and out of the main run. We've got the goals up here behind still that are there. How much use they get, we don't know, but we have to regularly clean the grass out of the joints, so they're not playing that much. But anyhow, that's another thing. The paved parking, handicap parking, what we've got out there is an unloading pad right now. When you come up to go to the splash pad, there's an unloading stretch of concrete that you can get on, and then our paved concrete walks that go down to the playground and to the splash pad. And the biggest thing that we would need is that we do the new restrooms is to put in the handicap parking and the sidewalk the same way and tie all of it together. And it is aligned so that it is basically on the north-south axis, and that'll let it take account of some of the afternoon shade. The paved parking, you need not only handicap for unloading, but you need it to where if somebody does have a power ramp, they can do it by the side. So you need more than just an unloading pad. There are some people that have electric powered wheelchairs that will come out, and they will need to have that kind of ramp to get down. It's not tremendously hard, but anyhow, that's something there. And that's the three things that they have hit me up about. And if you have contacts out in town, be sure for you all to hit them up about any thoughts that you have, because I think the basketball goals was the one surprise that we don't know how many or how big they're going to be, or the kids, but a lot of the kids, when they get to be they're out, you'll need either a swing ladder or trapeze or something that they're into physical fitness more than they are for just pure play like the little kids are.
All right, anybody have any questions, comments, or anything about the park?
I think that's something we probably ought to talk about, maybe a study session, get all the ideas together and pick what would be best. Maybe some input from the public of what they'd like to see.
I think Megan, didn't we have a vote one time about the next thing that we added at the park? What was that?
I've done it, you have to do it every year for the grant.
The last one was the,
Ninja course in the toddler park was huge.
Okay.
So those were the two last year, but that's the biggest.
okay, the zip line I thought was the big one too, wasn't
Part
it?
of the ninja.
Part of the ninja course,
Yeah.
okay.
The toddler park is gonna be way less expensive, but than the other one. The other one's really cool, so.
Yep. All righty. Yeah, does everybody else agree about having a study session once we get all the collection of data back and we do that? All right. Do y'all want to do that in August or September?
We need to do it
When-
first in August.
August?
Yeah.
Okay. So we'll schedule a study session in August for that. And we'll look at more of the park needs that time. All right, moving on to new business. Consideration of 2024 second quarter budget adjustments and resolution 24-08, providing for the approval of the adjustments. Charity, you want to come tell us about what we're adjusting?
We're adjusting, these are, it's a lot, I'm trying to just make sure everything's good before I leave.
Where you going?
Friday's my last day, so,
What?
Where are you going?
of course. So, if you'll look.
There's still
I
time.
have increased some revenue, sorry.
There's still time to say you can stay.
I don't know if they agree, they've already like hooked me up on their email, they're ready.
Oh,
So
okay.
They may disagree with that, but, I am feeling sad though. But you'll see that I increased revenue, there's also increases in some expenditures for some capital, just to continue to get everything paid up. The main one is, you'll see where in the parks, I did pavilion cameras and final splash pad payment. That's that final payment, we haven't been charged for it and we're not looking for it, but I just wanted it to be budgeted just in case. That was that, I think it was 5% that we held back. And then, no change in water. The street change is for sidewalks. We are going to be getting that grant, they increased it, so, yeah, so engineering fees are on us. And then there were some new computer purchases that was approved by the judge for the court clerk. Any questions?
Nothing? All right.
Read that resolution.
Yeah, we're gonna read that resolution right now. Resolution number 24-08, a resolution amending the fiscal year 2024 budget and making adjustments thereto. Whereas the city of Barling has hereforto set a budget for the fiscal year 2024, and whereas the Board of Directors of the city of Barling, Arkansas finds and determines the need to make adjustments of funds within the said budget. And whereas it is in the best interest of the citizens of the city of Barling that these adjustments be made. Now therefore be it resolved by the Board of Directors of the city of Barling, Arkansas as follows. Section 1, budget adjustments. The attached adjustments for fiscal year 2024 of the city of Barling budget be made, and the same are hereby approved pursuant to the attached. Section 2, effective date. This resolution shall become effective immediately upon its passage, passed and adopted by the City of Barling Board of Directors this 23rd day of July, 2024. Greg Murray, Mayor, attested to by Florine Brown, City Clerk. All righty, any discussion on that? If not, we'd like a motion to adopt that resolution.
I'll make a motion to adopt Resolution 24-08.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Let's do a roll call vote.
Excuse me. Aaron Rowe.
Yes.
John Manus.
Yes.
James Davis.
Yes.
Savannah Robinson.
Yes.
Ken Coley. Bill Young.
Yes.
Ron Sharon.
Yes.
That resolution has passed. All right. Consideration of ordinance 507, repealing and replacing ordinance 500 and establishing water and sewer rate structures, charges, penalties, and tapping fees. Steve, you want to tell us a little bit about what's changing in this?
Yes, sir. Y'all are well aware that Fort Smith has already increased the rate, and it'll appear in our next bill for the water that we buy from them, since they are the provider. What this does, Matt and Charity went through the water consumption records. And for people, and there's a great number of people that their gallonage is less than 2,000 gallons a month of our customers. So what we did is we lowered for those great quantities of people the minimum to 2,000. If you use more than that, then will pay for that. The other thing is the city limits of Central City and their water, they will pay the same amount now as our citizens do here. The number one thing is that the minimum was lowered because out of, 2,200 meters, by far and large, almost, I'd say probably 80% of them are 2,000 gallons or less. So Matt and Charity went through the records to see what this adjustment would be for the people that do consume. And it is an effort to get our finances where we're not going in a hole, but we're not sticking up unreasonably people that don't use the 3,000. The other thing, and people miss this with Fort Smith, it is the water we buy, it's a pay or take. And we have managed to get the consumption up, because if you don't, we're just sending them money without getting water, which is why you don't want to worry about the splash pad, because of the health dangers and the recertification you have to have in purification. The splash pad water, if it's recovered, has to be treated as if it's drinking water when you're through, because of the health danger. So if you look at this, you'll see what the rates are, and basically the people that are the minimum consumers are going to be the least affected.
So what are we paying now per gallon?
Right now, we're paying 0 to 3,000 gallon is the minimum,
That's the minimum.
Yeah.
but we're just lowering the 3,000 to 2,000.
What's after 3,000?
$6.16.
That stays the same, we're just gonna have a lower minimum.
Everything stays the same.
Yeah.
It just, if your normal usage is 3,000 gallons now, you're gonna go up $6.
But if you're under the 3, if you're in the 2,000, you're not.
What is the, what's the amount of people that use over 3,000 gallons? Any idea?
It's going to affect around 1,900 water users. They'll see, so what it's doing is taking us to 0 to 2,000 instead of 0 to 3,000. So anyone who uses over that 2,000 gallons is going to see a $6 increase, and that's about 1,900 water users. We'll see a $6 increase in their water bill each month. And we looked, Matt and I worked on this for 8 hours long, trying to figure out the best way to make sure that the city still makes enough money, because we have to make like 10%, $168,000 is what we have to clear over our revenues, over our expenditures. We sat for 8 hours to figure out how to do that without causing our citizens financial burden. There was no doubt that we had to recommend an increase, but we wanted to do it the most cost-effective way without. So there's also some budget changes that we're going to be making, or you guys will be making. One of the things that we did several years ago was we started paying Joe Kalin out of water. I would recommend, and I'm thinking you guys will do this at the beginning of the year, move Joe Kalin back to the general fund, because the general fund is doing well and water needs that revenue, that water needs that money not spent, so that we don't have to pass as much cost onto our consumer. The other thing we did, right now, the city, Central City, they pay $2.91 per 1,000 gallons for their water, while our citizens are paying $6.16. And so we took them up to $6.16. Please don't think we did this without reaching out to Central City. Central City has already passed an ordinance to increase their water rates, knowing that this was coming. So they are not going to see, they've already passed that ordinance, it's already happening, so they're not going to see undue burden.
How much was the minimum water rate at 3,000 gallons?
66.12 total.
Just for the water?
It was
Just for-
21.50.
Yes. And so now at 2,000 gallons, it'll remain 21.50. At 3,000 gallons, it'll go up by $6.16.
But that's water, sanitation, and sewer,
Well, the 21.50 is just water only.
the
66 is everything, yes.
Well, how many total meters we got all together? I mean, you said it's gonna be about 1,900 effective.
About 2,300 meters.
23. So, about 3/4 of the town is getting $6 hit.
And is this increase pretty much exactly what our rate increase is from Fort Smith? Or is there
No.
a
They
buffer?
went up 95%.
No.
Do what?
we're-
Fort Smith went up like 95% on us.
We are not increasing as much as Fort Smith did, but we will still be able to sustain this with still getting revenues and still, we are going to be watching our budget for water.
We were paying
Which we
$1.80
are.
per CCF, and now they're gonna charge
$3.04.
3 or 4.
And then in 2025, it will go up again too. And this takes into consideration it going up to the full amount. We will still have 168,000 over expenditures just on the water.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but part of this contract we have with Fort Smith when Fort Chaffee was given back to the cities, was there not a price in there that was frozen until the end of the contract?
No, it's not frozen. The duration of the contract is, it goes to 2032.
I think what he's asking was the rate in that agreement.
Yes.
The rate wasn't frozen.
But it was not.
It's not.
It even accounts in there for how periodically Fort Smith can do a rate change and a rate study and all that.
So it's a take it or leave it deal. I mean, with them passing their, rate increases, I mean, it's gonna affect everybody.
Oh, sure.
I mean,
I mean, mean, but there's nothing in there that froze that rate until 2032.
Or is there something in that contract that says they can only go up so much?
Not really.
It's been a hot minute since I read it, but I think as long as it's reasonable and it's based upon, you know, a reasonable, if they're gouging us, that would be a different thing. If they do a water rate study and it says, you know, that you can go up every so often, and of course, as with all things in Fort Smith, I think they could have done it a lot more frequently than they've done it. They just haven't.
The study he's talking to, there is a provision in that contract that it has to be by somebody that's AWWA certified, and that's the American Water Works Association. There's a methodology to doing it, and I did one of the first ones out here when I came out here years ago. But since it's now purchased and it's tied, there wasn't, when I first came, they didn't have this contract. I spent about a year without, because the contract came in '02, and I was here for a year before it got there.
And I don't think they've not had a water rate change since Chaffee got all that building out in Chaffee, have they? I'm trying to remember when the last one was before this. I think when you stop and think about all the construction that we have had, you know, at the Chaffee Crossing area and all that, and there has not been one rate increase over the, what have we been complaining about, you know, with the trust, 25 years, you know?
And that's
all
why,
that-
that's why I think there might be something in that, when we were dealing with this water issue a few years back,
We were
I
paying.
read a lot of that, I mean, I wrote it front to back, back to front. And I wanna say there was something in there about the rate.
I'll take a look at it. I remember it as I have read it, and again, I've slept
Been a
since
while.
then, but, I mean, that they were allowed to do, you know, a water rate increase.
Yeah. The
And
first,
like I said, they've been talking about doing it for years, they just haven't done it.
the first ones I did, Bill, was like well, the one before this at $1.80 was $1.63. And then before that, it was like $1.45 or something like that. And that, it goes back, I think, Matt, that $1.63 goes back at least 5 years.
Remember when we started getting in this disagreement with Fort Smith over the usage and all that? If you'll remember, prior to them threatening us and then dropping the $1.6 million bomb on us, don't you remember how they offered as a peace offering that, look, we're not gonna ask for any of that back, we just wanna change the water rate? You know, remember they wanted to change the water rate, I don't know if you remember on that, but that was their initial approach to us, was to say, we wanna go ahead and up the rates to these numbers that were exorbitant. And Steve said, you know, well, actually, I think that was Mike that was here. This was when Mike was city administrator, but as Steve being the director of public works, you know, they came to me and said, absolutely not, that's not an option at all. And so they were talking about water rate changes way back when as an incentive, you know, for us to change them then. And we said, no, if there is an underpayment, we'll pay it, but it's not that number. And then, of course, you know the rest of the story, that took off from there, and we spent 2 years fighting Fort Smith over the underpayment issue. But I'm trying to remember, I can't remember a water rate change. Can you, Steve?
That's why I'm asking the question, because I think there's something in that contract.
I'll look at it. As I recall, they've had the right to do this all along. They just, again, Fort Smith Fort Smith being Fort Smith.
Well, the deal is,
They haven't done it.
they hired somebody from the outside to do the AWWA study. They went and found somebody else because of the scrutiny that they're under about raising it.
Well, you know, I read the newspaper like you do. From everything I saw that's come out in the last few months in Fort Smith, they didn't really want to do this either. They were not in a big hurry to do this, but they were being told that unless they do this, they're gonna be in such a financial bind that this is an absolute must. And even then, George and his daughter, I think, still voted against it. Wasn't there two that?
Yeah, two.
Was it the
What it
consensus?
is the bonding, Bill, you have to have a certain revenue set aside for your bonds. And that's been a requirement. And then the other part is in the audit, you have to have
I get all that for the people in Fort Smith.
we have to too, we have bonds, same requirements.
I know we do too.
I will look at that,
But
Bill.
please do, because
will. I will. I'm going off of having read it a lot once upon a time. I haven't done it in a while.
I'd like to see it.
But I'm pretty sure, if memory serves, that they are able, they have to give a certain amount of contractual notice. They have to put us on notice, they wanna do a water study, and they did all that. But I will go look at it again, just to make absolutely sure that our rate was not frozen up until the expiration of the contract.
Or there's a certain amount of increase they could have that's not
A cap,
a cap.
a cap, yeah. You can raise it, but it can't be more than X.
That's right.
Okay, I'll look.
Alrighty, so before we read it, do we want to hold off until he does the research?
I'd like to know 100% before we vote on it.
Are y'all okay with that? We'll hold off and
I just
table it until the next meeting. Okay, we're gonna,
The only thing you really have here is the rate structure is the only thing. There's no other changes.
I was under the impression that as long as they didn't raise yours any higher than they raised anybody else's, it was all right to go.
I think that's right.
I think that's what it is.
I think
They
a little
can't,
more to
they
it
can't
than that.
cap you higher than somebody else.
In fact, there's a comment somewhere that I've read about the two contract users, us and Arcoma. And that's why they made that change. And then the other is the Van Buren deal, which was that true-up business that they have because of the Crawford County lawsuits that went on years ago. And there's, I think, three changes or three exclusions.
alrighty, if we're wanting to table this, can I get a motion to table this to the next meeting?
I move that we table this ordinance 507 till the next meeting.
Second. All right, got a second by John. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, the same. All right, this motion, we've tabled that until the next meeting. All right, moving right along, department head reports. Joe's not here. Matt, how we doing?
Doing good. Doing a lot of mowing.
Lot of mowing. All right, Tommy?
In June, we had 5 fires, 83 medical calls, and 16 public service calls. That's 104 runs. Average response time of 2 minutes, 9 seconds. We had one out-of-city response to Lavaca for an outbuilding fire, like a storage building that was on fire. And the hydrant painting is still ongoing. We've added a lot of hydrants.
Are we up or down from last year for calls?
We'd be probably a little bit behind where we were last year,
Okay,
but
not much,
Not much.
not much. All righty. Mr. Bryan?
Everything's going as it should be. I guess y'all heard about the Mercy issue.
Oh, yeah.
Something to keep in mind, we kind of lose perspective how things can turn bad really quick. We were the first officers that arrived, were Barling officers, to engage what they thought was an armed suspect. Captain Mayhew showed up just seconds afterwards, but let y'all know how that went. We were the first ones there to.
I can tell you how fast they came from downtown because I was at the Jaegers downtown and I thought something bad had happened because there was 5 of them straight by Rogers Avenue flying. So, yeah,
Yeah, the county put out the call. They are trying to get everybody they could there to.
appreciate everything that your guys are doing and Tommy, thank you guys too for everything that you do. All right, Mr. Steve, you're up to bat.
Okay, we'll try to make this easily. First off, we had the visit from the highway department, and we drove the route that we talked about for the projects. There's 6 of them, and they may, if we find out about the railroad, we sent the message, Kim sent it back in the week to Union Pacific to try to spring the street over there by the crossing by the Catholic Church and Frank Street. The highway department is agreeable if we can get it loose to adding it to our repair list, because they have upped the dollar amount as well, which helps a bunch. And we have roughly about a mile, and we have maybe 6/10 of a mile on that one street to rebuild. And I will tell you that they've told me that that will probably be all of it in a 2026 bid package. And I suspect, knowing the people that I've talked to, that they'll do it the same way they've been doing it and try to group the similar projects together with a known. Okay, the other thing from the highway side, the access permit has been applied for Dwayne Jones and Kay Jones storage and the street that we are projecting, which is tied to the railroad story, and that's 11th Street. And this is the highway entry of 11th Street when it would come down onto the new Frontier Road. And we have asked for it to be placed at the time that they do the paving and the ditch work on Frontier Road. And if you've seen the sign, it looks like they're looking maybe by May of next year for their completion. Then the other thing we have is items to cover tonight. After this is the door-to-door sales issue. And then, let's see if I got one more. Okay, Joe Kalin has put in the package the proposed ordinance exclusions and changes for ordinance 242 and its amended one for animal control. And Matt has been briefed, but Joe has sent rather direct animal exceptions and basic instructions of what we've had, and we've fielded complaints from folks about roosters. We've fielded complaints about fowls and square feet and pens and coops, and basically there's about 5 folks that actually have and were grandfathered in that had poultry here historically. And those folks, nothing will prevent keeping of fowl. But you gotta listen to what the rules are. The other thing is, you can't keep hogs in the city limits. It just doesn't go with living in town, not anymore. The only time they need to have hogs here is when they're on the barbecue grill. The livestock's not gonna change at 1 acre per animal. And you've seen the deal about rabbits. We don't have anybody farming rabbits. The most important thing, I think, is you've always got somebody that decides to bring in a kangaroo or a crocodile or something like that. And if you look at this back thing, it says that you can't have wild and exotic or dangerous animals. It doesn't include the minnows, but we've always got, at one time when I came to work out here, we had a lady that had wolf dogs. And the neighbors, nobody ever was eaten, but that's not a real good, you don't know what's gonna happen. Ferrets are the other thing. They carry a couple of diseases and you can't vaccinate them for rabies. So there's reasons why these animals are listed in here, The bobcats are usually taking shortcuts through town or coming off of Chaffee. The mountain lions that showed up have been down in the river bottom and then went across back up the creek up here, and then they've seen a couple on Chaffee. I don't know of anybody that's running falcons now, but if that's something that when you're talking about birds of prey, I don't think there's anybody around here that I can think of that hunts with them. But that's one of the things that, they won't come near you, but you need to be thinking about if somebody's got them.
Hey, Steve, why can you not vaccinate a ferret? Is it because they're too squirmy, or because you just, like, they should not be vaccinated?
You can't, Joe says that from biology, you can't, for rabies, you can't do them, and that's the chance that you take.
I just wondered.
You want one?
Depends.
A rabid ferret.
Rabbit.
A lot of people's got
Like a
them
rabbit
bearded
and a
dragons.
ferret.
I saw tons of crickets for them to eat.
Yeah, bearded
I don't even
dragons.
know what they look like.
They look like a big horny toad.
Really?
I can refer you to one on Instagram.
That's okay. I don't want them in my
It's
shop.
called Who's a Good Wizard.
Anything to do with lizards or snakes, I don't want to do that.
Anything else?
Is there, and I wanted, Matt, is there anything that you've run into in Joe's list that, I know he went,
It's gray. I don't like gray. Lawyers don't like gray. Good lawyers don't like gray. There's nothing I can do about the hairs. These things always have some kind of wiggle room. Can I have a potbelly pig? Well, it says no hogs. Well,
Or swine.
is a potbelly pig, which is a pet owned by hundreds of thousands of people across the country, does that mean you can't own a potbelly pig? You know what I'm saying? Just things like that. You get into semantics and, well, it says you can't own swine. Well, that is a pig. Well, they got him in a cool little outfit and a top hat. And, he lives inside, he sleeps with them in the bed.
How polite is your hog?
Exactly.
Is it a friendly hog?
So the more you try, it's like nailing Jell-O to the wall. The more you try to define this stuff, the more, is a goose on there.
it's a foul.
It says ducks and chickens. What kind of chickens? Can we have
Farmland.
exotic chickens? Can somebody
Silky
have a guinea
chickens?
hen running around to take care of all the ticks and fleas in their yard?
Guineas.
I don't know. I hate things like this.
Barling Zoo?
It's like, I know you have to, but
You can make
like I
money
said,
on it.
it's just trying to nail Jell-O to a wall. It's just the more you try to define it, the more areas you create for somebody to come up with some bizarre exception.
I like my rooster that crows behind my house wherever he's at. It makes me feel like I'm living out in the country. I don't know whose he is, but I hear him.
Where did they get a peacock?
Yeah,
Yeah, I'd be into that.
you need to really,
Blue
you really
feathers.
need to think what kind of, you're opening up.
Now, I can draft whatever
Seen a
y'all
white
want.
peacock?
That's the difficulty I find as the
Don't buy 'em.
drafter. Is my mind just starts thinking about, well, what if this? Well, what if that? Well, what if they have this? Well, what if they
What
have
if this
that?
one, what if the limit is one pot-bellied pig instead of a herd of swine?
What if it's keep your potbelly pig on a leash and mind your own business and don't let it poop in your neighbor's yard?
Yeah,
How about we put that
go
in-
for
Well, and here's what will
along
happen.
Along with
Somebody
the
will have a
study
pot-bellied
session.
pig, and then somebody will say, well, I want a bigger pig, and I'm gonna put a top hat on him. How come the pot-bellied pig can stay and mine can't? They're the same, but just one's bigger than the other.
And then it's
They
like
don't have a top hat.
discrimination.
That's
Huh?
it, it needs a top hat.
Well, that's what I'm,
Now,
that's
see,
what I'm
if
saying.
If you get more than one pig, somebody gonna be complaining, cause there's gonna be a smell with.
This is starting to sound like
So-
if you give a mouse a cookie.
How about we do this? How about we put that on the study session as well in August as well, so we'll discuss that.
The
as
If
pigs
you
must
give a
stay in
pig a
the house.
pancake.
Yeah.
Mayor, I
That's a
think we
bird.
went over this whole thing here a few years back, and it's drafted almost the same as Fayetteville's.
almost the same as Fayetteville's.
Might wanna check into
We'll
that.
check into that. I'll bring up Fayetteville's and
I
I'll
thought
look at ours.
Republicans
and
didn't like more laws.
See how similar we can get them, and we'll talk about that at this next study session in August. So we'll include that in there, and we'll have
So
Joe.
when we bring up 507 again, our next meeting, are we gonna go over the rest of the ordinance, or do we wanna go through it? Because I'd like to read part of this disconnection service on here.
We'll go over
It-
that the next one.
Okay.
Yeah, that way you guys have the ordinance in front of you, can read it, and that way, when we come back, then we can really get into the meat and potatoes and all that. So we can do it then. Steve, you got anything else?
Well, I was gonna say that we almost had a pig and pig collection out here one night. They called me at about 2 in the morning, and somebody had dumped a load of real swine, and they were not midget porkers. They were big, big porkers, and they were meandering down Church Street headed west. And they called me and asked what to do with them, and I told them you can put them in any fenced yard except don't put them in the cemetery. And it was this long, strange silence, and so Danny Stewart got them hemmed up down there behind, and they came and got some citizens came with a trailer and loaded up the hogs, and nobody knew anything about who they belonged to, but they made good sausage.
All righty. Anybody have any announcements they'd like to have, say or anything? No?
Door-to-door sales.
Anybody, don't forget, we got the study session afterwards for door-to-door sales, so we'll take a little 5-minute break after the meeting, and then we'll start on that. Anybody from the public like to say anything? No? All right, I'd like to, once again, Mr. Manus, happy birthday, sir.
All right.
Would you like to do the honors today?
No, I'm gonna let, no, we're not gonna
Let
bring
Ron
it.
do the honors
Yeah, we're
today.
gonna let, you know, hey.
Making a motion to adjourn.
Got a motion to adjourn.
We'll
I
do
have
a second on that.
Got a second by John. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, folks, have a great day. Happy
I'm gonna have
birthday,
that water.
John.